Welcome back, not to the Duke of Earl, but the Price of Business. I am Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Speaking of famous people, I have the one, the only, a man I've watched many times on television over the years, the amazing Kreskin on the program. I'm big on first names. Welcome to the program, Amazing. How are you, sir?
Oh, Kevin, it is a pleasure. And by the way, I don't know if your listeners should know about this, but they might. Was I talking to your producer, Sigmund, before the program? Was that his name?
Yeah, Sigmund.
He is, for the sake of the listeners, I would say he is a character.
He is.
Not just a character and a half. And I thought, my God, if this is part of the team, I can imagine talking to Kevin. And it's you guys are something together. I can just hear it in your voice and in the energy. But it's good to talk to you folks. And now are you out in? You're not in Texas right now, are you?
I better be. It's been a long week. I just got back from Vegas, which I know you've had to spend a lot of time in Vegas.
Yes.
But I am in Houston, Texas.
Yes.
You are very kind and, may I say, overly generous about Sigmund Kramer. But he'll appreciate it. But I got to tell you, we already have to butter the edges of the door to get his head in and out of this place.
Well, I want to tell you. I want to tell you this.
It's ruinous. It's ruinous what you've done.
I say this to the people behind the scenes, the station, how your show is carried, and everything else. Listen, if and I love Houston, Texas. I have some good friends there. So, but if I'm in the area and there's an extra time, I'll come on your program live. But I have to warn the listeners. I'll attempt to read both your thoughts, and this could be quite a serious crisis.
This could be. Well, if you come into my studios, I'm going to expect you to make Sigmund disappear, but not have him reappear. That's going to be the requirement.
The problem will be in making him reappear. No. Last year I headlined 3 months in Vegas, and I have to tell you a quick anecdote, which I get a kick out of. One night, I'm reading the thoughts of my audience. But by the way, I have a brand new book, and we're going to talk about my getting a copy to you in the next week or so. It's called Conversation with Kreskin, and I'm very proud of this book. You can get it. You can look at Barnes and Nobles, Amazon.com if it's not in your stores. But I have to tell you an incident I mentioned. I'm reading the thoughts of members of the audience, and this gentleman, I said a couple of names, and this gentleman, an elderly man, stood up. And I said, what do the names mean to you? There were two names. He says, well, Kreskin, there are pets. These are two dogs my wife and I have. We don't live here. We are visiting the Riviera, and we are from another part of the country. And as he started to sit down, I said to him, did you say to your wife, I wonder if Kreskin can tell me my Army number? And I got to tell you this, Kevin, he slammed his fist down on the table. He says, yeah, I did. He said, but that was at another place. We're not staying here at the Riviera. We're eating somewhere else. I said, do you know it by heart? Well, no member of the service, man or woman, would ever forget their ID number. And I told him to concentrate. He said he never talked to anybody about it. His wife probably doesn't know it. I gave him every single digit of his Army number, and it was from his being an officer in World War II. So but the other side, I got to tell you, just happened a little while ago in the state of Washington. Similar situation. I'm reading the thoughts of members of the audience. I mentioned some names, and this lady stands up, and I said, what do they mean? She said, well, they were people I went to grade school with. I haven't seen them for years. And as she started to sit down, I said to her, why are you thinking, and I mentioned a simple first name, I don't remember it, like Nancy or Betty or Jane or what have you, and she gasped. And I said to her, are you okay? She says, well, yes. I said, what do you mean? She points to her right, Kevin, and says, this is my husband. She points to her left, sitting next to her, and says, these are two friends of mine. I said, yes, ma'am, what's your point? She says, Kreskin, I'm expecting, and everybody knows that I have told nobody what I'm naming my child. You just named it out loud. So my work is reading people's thoughts.
Wow.
That's what happens in live concerts. That's why I warn you folks, if I get in that studio with you guys live, oh my God.
It's going to be embarrassing. We might not let you, we may not be able to let you leave, you know.
I hear you, sure.
We have no idea what happened to the amazing Kreskin. It was amazing. So tell me, so when did you begin to become cognizant of your skill?
Well, that's neat you asked me, because in the new book.
But you knew I was going to ask that anyway, so I mean, come on.
Yeah. Good. But in the new book, Conversation with Kreskin, and I'm really, I'm like a kid about this. In the middle of the book, there's an 8-page section looking like it's a color cartoon pages, just as if you had picked a comic book up of years gone by, and done by Joe St. Pierre, who was a famous cartoonist. And in it, he recounts in cartoon form what happened to me. I was in third grade, 9 years old. I can remember to this day, my teacher was Miss Curtis, and it was raining outside, and she says to all of us in the class, well, kids, it's raining. I'm not going to send you out to play. I'm going to teach you a game. So she sent one of my classmates out. I can tell you her name today. It was Jane Hamilton, and she's outside the room. And she said to the class, let's hide a bean bag, a little cloth bag. And they put it in someone's desk. So she calls Jane back in, and she says, Jane, you walk around. When if you're getting closer to where we hit it, we'll say you're getting warm. When you're not near, you're getting cold. If you're real close to it, we'll say you're getting hot. An old children's game called Hot and Cold, and she finally found it. And I was kind of disappointed I wasn't picked to play this. And I'm walking home, and it's a mile from my house. I always walked to school up to 12th grade, and my brother was home, but my mother was shopping. My brother was 3 years younger. I said, Joey, let's go over to Grandma and Grandpa's house. It was about 10 minutes away. They were from Sicily. They didn't speak much English. I loved them dearly, and he built the house with his own hands. Second story, they lived in. They rented it downstairs. I said, Joey, go upstairs. Here's a penny. Hide it upstairs in Grandma and Grandpa's house. So he's up there, and I'm standing outside the house. He calls me, Kevin, I walk up these oaken stairs, as I can see, and I haven't seen the house in 40 years, but I walk up the steps. I walk into the kitchen, very old-fashioned. My grandmother's sitting behind a table. She probably wonders what we're doing. And I slowly meander through the kitchen, and I end up in my uncle's bedroom. He was at work, and I climbed up on a chair because I'm 9 years old. I'm short. And I found myself reaching behind a curtain rod, and as I'm reaching, I suddenly feel the penny, and then it dawned on me. I forgot to tell my brother to talk to me. He never said a word. He never spoke to me. There was no communication. And somehow I picked up these images. Of course, my grandmother being Italian, Kevin, I suspect she must have thought I had the evil eye or what have you. But it was the beginning, and teachers in 4th and 6th grade had me experimenting with my classmates. And by the time I was in 9th grade high school, I was 15 years old. I was doing 2-hour performances. And the offshoot of what you just heard is in all my shows today around the world, and there's stories that are wild in my book about it. I turn my check over to my audience, as I'm going to do tomorrow in Connecticut, the next day in New Mexico. I hand the check to a committee. I'm taken out of the theater. My check is hidden anywhere in the theater, and they call me back in. No one speaks to me. No one says anything. If I fail to find my check through the thinking of the committee, I forfeit it. It goes back to the people who booked me in the shows for free. And you got to admit, Kevin, that's a hell of a way to make a living.
That's a wager. That's quite the wager. So let me ask you. We only got a couple of minutes left. Yeah. Tell us about the book.
Well, the book is a panorama, as I said, of behind-the-scenes experiences I had. I did 88 Carson shows, which is more than any guest in history. Regis, who just left a television show, I did 105 shows with him. I talk about some of the fabric of what I do, what goes on in my head, but also there are things regarding the future. Kevin, the next time when you get the book, we'll go into this. There is a trial being put together now, which has me pissed off as anything in my life, and it's dealing with Sirhan Sirhan, whom, as we remember, shot point blank Bobby Kennedy, and there were witnesses, including show people there who saw it. Guess what? The lawyers and a couple of behaviorists are putting together a case in which they're going to try to prove that Sirhan Sirhan was not responsible, that he was under deep hypnosis and programmed. And since much of my book deals with the truth about hypnosis, I'm going to prepare when that case is through. I'm preparing to make my position, if I need to in court, that the case they're preparing, that he was hypnotized and programmed, can be explained in 2 words that have the initials BS, to be continued.
Wow. And your book is already out, correct?
It's already out, and you can, yes, it's been out for 2 weeks now, and it's called Conversations with Kreskin. Look on Barnes and Nobles or Amazon. But you know what? I think your producer's going to call here. We'll get a copy to you, and let's talk about the book more.
Well, I can just cross one more item off my bucket list. I had a conversation with the amazing Kreskin. I will say it was amazing, and delighted to have you on. What a great guest. I can see why Carson had you on so many times.
And Kevin, listen, as I said earlier, in the spirit of broadcasting, well, let's not say goodbye. Let's just say to be continued.
To be continued. I like that. All right. My friend, good to have you on. We'll look forward to having you on again. You're a great guest. When we come back, we're going to have much more for you. You need to stay tuned to it right here on The Price of Business.